Hello. Oh gosh.
And hello, and you're listening to 89.5 WAHS, your Avondale Community Radio. Little hiccup there. This is our first show this summer
Yep.
since school let out.
No, it's been a while.
Nostalgic?
I mean,
I think it's not. I don't think it's not. It's not a lot of time to call it nostalgic.
yeah, I'm not quite nostalgic yet. I'm still in like the confused stage of having been because I was here every day for several hours during like the last semester of school. I was here for
Yeah.
like 4.5 hours a day,
Yeah.
and then I wasn't here for like 2 months. So
Yeah. It's interesting, but I'm glad we're back in. I was on the last little show they did. I don't think it was anyone's official show, just a show.
it was a show.
Yeah, it's good to be back on air. It's relaxing almost.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to all summer?
Well,
Oh, quick note: if you're watching this on YouTube with the webcams, we are in black and white,
Yes.
and we know we're in black and white.
that was totally on purpose because these webcams, like I personally like the color just kind of looks nasty on them because I remember the last R.A.M show was also on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's just bright and the colors are weird, but like the black and whites are like edgy and teenager, so
Yeah. It looks cool.
that's cool.
Anyways, so
Hey, guys.
continue. How's your summer been?
So I've spent a couple weeks in the hospital. That was a
Yeah.
blast. That was a thing. That was a big reason why I haven't. Well, I mean, I guess Mrs. McNee wasn't here anyway,
Yeah.
so it's not like I could have been here if I wanted to. But so essentially, long story short, I didn't know what was happening. I was just getting these stomach aches that would just kind of come and go randomly, and it was there was like no rhyme or reason to it. And eventually we went to the hospital just because the pain was so bad, and I was like rolling around on the floor, just like moaning in
Oh,
unstoppable
no.
pain. And they had to take several scans, and eventually it turned out that I had what was called intussusception, which is something that usually only happens in like babies.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
literally like little tiny people, like 3% of babies. All these little tiny ones, doctors see it all the time. And then the 17-year-old comes in with it, and they're like, what is going on? So what essentially was happening is that I had a piece of, was it kidney? Yeah, no, pancreatic tissue.
Okay.
That when I was born had gotten dislodged from my actual pancreas.
Okay.
And had found like a little space in my intestines to hide.
Okay.
And it's been sitting there my entire life.
Okay.
And then my intestines eventually grabbed onto that and tried to digest it.
Oh,
so they were
no.
so that like kind of snake-like motion, it was slowly pulling my intestines into themselves. So my intestines were essentially trying to eat themselves. And they had pulled it had as they say telescoped about 15 centimeters my intestines
like
just
a-
into themselves.
This is like an anatomy lesson for everyone at home. So
A gross Mitchell's intestines.
God.
Welcome to the Mitchell's intestines
it sounds.
show.
It reminds me of the movie Tremor. Have you ever seen Tremor?
No.
It's basically all these people are out in the desert, and there's these giant snake worm things, like earthworms,
Oh,
like
okay.
gigantic, that come up out of the ground to eat them. And the only way they can stay safe is by standing on rocks. And there's like a couple of them spotted around, and like sometimes they're on the roof of a car or whatever. Well, that doesn't make sense because the tremors are so big they could either just eat the rock or they could just
Yeah.
like jump over it. I don't know. It's an old movie,
It's a
so
movie,
it doesn't
so-
make a lot of sense. It's mostly just long dramatic pauses, and you know how old movies are. Yeah. Well, anyways, so what I've been up to, thanks for asking. So I spent the first week gone at Boise State. I talked about it a little bit on the last show, but I want to give it like an official plug because it's actually a really big deal to me now, and I need to make sure that people hear about it. When the school year comes around, I'll talk to it officially. So I was approached by Mr. Mason. Some of you know him. I was approached by Mr. Mason. The whole class was in, somewhere at the end of the semester, and they were like, okay, so here's Boise State. Here's what it is. I got a rough description of what it was. I didn't really know what it was. All they said it had something to do with politics. And now I know why they didn't really give us a description. So all they said is that it had to do something with politics. And I was like, all right, I'm in debate club. Sure, why not? And I need something to do over the summer. I'm not going to be sitting at home or whatever because I don't have any sports going on. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll sign up for this. So Miss Hyde called me in towards the end of the school year. She's like, all right, you got it. We're going to send you the Optimist Club of Auburn Hills sent me. They paid for the whole thing. Got to thank them so much. I'm going to go in and talk to them some point before the end of the summer. So it's at Grand Valley State University. It's a mock government camp. And here's how it works. So you get there, and I got there with really no intent in participating, and I found out by the end of the week that everyone else was in the same boat. So I got there thinking, all right, this is a politic camp. Also, there was this gigantic packet that Boise State sent us, huge. Like, if I rolled it up and hit someone on the head, I might give them a concussion. It was so I had to read through all of that first, and it's all about politics and whatnot and what's going to go on in the week. But still, it's very vague on what actually happens in the week. And I realize now why it's so you get there, and it's at Grand Valley State University. It was a couple-hour drive. We go there. I get my dorm. I meet my roommate, Colin. He's really cool. I doubt he'll ever hear this. So he's really cool, and we're assigned to a city, right? And our city was Monroe, and we ended up, love Monroe. So we're in the city of Monroe. It was about me and, I don't know how many other guys. I would say like 20-ish. I'm probably wrong, though. I'm not good with numbers. So it was like me and 20 other guys, and we have 2 counselors, and they introduce themselves. They're like, hey, here's my name, whatever. This is what's going to go on. Basically, what you're assigned to do is you have a city in a fictional 51st state called Boise State. It's off the coast of California, and it's a fictional whatever. And you're assigned to a city, and your city is given a ton of issues at the start, and you have to deal with them. So our city was the crime capital of the state, which is nice to start with.
Great.
Our high school had, I think, 7 stabbings in 1 month. We were in debt by hundreds of thousands. I wonder if it was millions. I think we might have been in debt by millions. We were the only port city in the entire state, and we were also our biggest port manufacturer. Our biggest shipping company wanted to sue us and leave our port. We had crime everywhere. There was a bunch of rundown buildings. There were hobos. And so our city was the worst you could imagine. And they were like, all right, guys, fix it.
Fix it.
The counselors didn't give us anything. Everyone in the room was just like, I didn't realize it. I expected going in, everyone there was going to be like super politic nerds. They probably all are like straight A students. Well, they are. They're probably all like super genius children and whatever. And they are. And I thought all of them were going to be like so ready for all this. And I thought most of them had been there before. I didn't understand that it's only one-time thing. You only get to do it your junior year. So they give us our first session of, I don't remember what the word was, city time. Basically, the counselor's like, all right, guys, go. And then they just sit back. And then we have to fix everything that's going on. So one of our guys stood up. He's like, all right, I'll lead the conversation. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to fix it and stuff. We got Steven in the studio right now, hopping on the webcam. He's like, all right, we're gonna fix whatever's going on, and we came up with it was all fun. We tried. I spoke up a little bit, but like I said, I had no intention of doing anything. I was just gonna sit in my dorm and be quiet and try not to be involved as much as I can with let the week get over. So I talked to a couple guys. There was this one kid who stood out really well, Charlie, if he ever hears this. He wore a suit on the first day, a full 3-piece suit, had the tie, everything. Everyone else was just dressed like normal.
I almost expected like everyone would wear a suit, and then you'd be the one guy there who's just like in like jeans and like a t-shirt that just says like "I love mom" or something on it.
I thought I was gonna be. I actually I don't own a suit. Like I don't own a full suit. One either. So I had to ask my brother's best friend, who's like 6'3", to borrow his, because none of my brothers are close to me in height. One of them's but he's skinnier or whatever. So like we didn't have a suit. So I was like, oh geez. So I tried to borrow one, and I think I didn't end up packing. I just packed a vest. So he stood out really well, and he's like, all right, guys, I'm running for governor. So here's the way it works is you run for positions on the first day, and it all happens so fast. Like a week doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it's crazy. So it starts off with trying to get elected for a city position, mayor, city council, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day you try and get elected for a state position, like governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, all that. So those are the big deals. If you're going for that, you imagine those people are like really hardcore, and they were. They were the people. They knew what they were going for before they got there.
Okay.
So by the end of the first day, there were posters up all over the dorms. We had the entire building to ourselves. It was just Boise State. The entire building and the cafeteria, and then another building with lecture halls were all just for Boise State use. So it was really like our mini. They really made it feel like it was just us, and it was interesting. So there were posters up everywhere. Everyone's running for this. I decided to run for city council. I was like, all right, I'll do something. But if I get that, I'll be surprised, number one, and number two, I'm not going any further than that. So the time comes to do speeches, and I do my speech in front of my little group, and I get elected city council by them, and then you're split up into two parties. They can't put you in Republican and Democrat because there'd be some controversy there. So they just put us into two made-up parties, Nationalists and Federalists, and they don't represent any views, like real-life views. They're just for the sake of organizing
Wait,
kids.
but those were actual...
They are, but they just put them at, it's just the sake of...
They just called them something?
Yeah,
okay.
it's just for the sake
those are
of
still
organizing.
actual
parties.
parties.
So I won that, and then I won the next appointment, so I'm city councilman now. I was like, wow, I didn't think I was going to get this far. I had no preparation for the speeches at all, but those were only like 60 seconds. I had no preparation for that. And then, we go back and everyone's chill, and I'm super happy. I'm like, all right, I'm city council. This is going to be, a fun week. I'll try my best, whatever, do my job. But still, I wasn't really intent on doing anything. Well, we're sitting at lunch the next day, and at this point, I had really made friends with everyone. And it was so crazy. I think that's the point where we realized we're like, wait a minute, we're only on day 2. The first day felt like a month. It felt like we were going to be there forever. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was just, there was no time in between. There was a little rec time that you could use the facilities at, and you could use the pool and gym and whatever. But I never did any of that stuff. I was just like still trying to work on city issues. So it felt like forever. You were constantly doing something besides like eating. And even when we were eating, we were talking about how we're going to fix it because everyone was under pressure, but it was fun. Everyone was really focused on fixing the city. I don't think there was anyone in our group that really wanted to like, knock off and go do whatever. And also our counselors are really cool, so they pushed us really hard to, do stuff. But they didn't tell us anything. And here's the reason why. At the end of the week, they have this, by the time that the last government function is the time of the day when you actually, everything you do is actually official and counts towards it. So at the end of the week, after all of that's done and there's nothing going on with the government, they're like, all right, we're going to have something called, what do they call it? They called it like the happy feels time, where you got to ask your counselors anything. Because the whole week we were speculating who these people actually were, our 2 counselors, like outside of Boise State. Turns out they all had made up names. So that way we couldn't look them up and figure out what they did. Because the whole thing is that you're not supposed to know anything about what happened to Boise State in the past, because it does carry over to the next year. So like there was a highway in the fictional 51st state, and the group before us built that highway. Fictionally. So it was like, you don't know what went on before. So you're not supposed to have any knowledge going in. So they take that really seriously, that no one knows anything. So we didn't know any of these. It turned out that one of our counselors, we thought he was like 25, was 18, and he was there last year. We were like, wait, what? And the other guy, he was like, we thought he was 18, but he was 21. And it was just like, it was so like our minds were blown. And at that point we were actually like, everyone's really cool with each other. Everyone like, it was just so, the camaraderie and the brotherhood was just so intense that you felt like you were with family after a week. No one was still going through the like awkward socializing phase. It was like, and we had like inside jokes and stuff, and it was awesome. Also, the American Legion is the group that runs it up. The American Legion is actually a veterans program, and it's veterans taking care of veterans. So the American Legion are a bunch of veterans who are committed to helping out and aiding other veterans. So they get them, they do anything. They, just even as little as like hang out with them. So the American Legion was there, and each city has their own legionnaire is their names. And we had Uncle Ben. It was what he went by. He was a really awesome guy, but they're stern though, and it was kind of scary. The first day you're like, oh, I got to impress all these veterans, because you don't want to be disrespectful, gotta love them, right? Well, they were really cool and chill with everything, and it was focused on the Legion a little bit, and it was really cool having them around and having their opinions on everything. Every day we did colors, which is when you go out and raise the flag and everyone stands at salute and the band plays, and at the end of the day you take the flag down and all of that. So while we're learning about politics, we're also taking in a lot about veterans and respecting it. So it was a really positive experience in that sense. So the American Legion was also there. I love all. By the end of the week, I was really close with all of them. I got some of their business cards, and I was invited to become a son of Legionnaires, because they're son of the American Legion, because my dad was in the Navy, my grandfather as well. So they're all really awesome, and it was such a cool week because we didn't know anything, and they tried really hard to hide it. Like, they made up names, and the head counselor who is in charge of it all, he's such a fool. I love him so much. And he played with everyone so much. So during the opening ceremony, he was making up people's names, right? So he also went as far to make up their majors and whether they went to college or not. So one of the guys came up and he's like, this is Ben, and he goes to so and so, and he studies dancing. And then the next guy's like, he studies ceramics, and the next guy he's like, yeah, and the next guy he's like, he does gender studies with a focus on feminism. But all of us were taking this really seriously. Like, all the kids, everyone thought this was like 500% serious. We had no idea. So we're all just sitting there like, wow, those are really interesting
choices.
But it was, let alone the entire week, they're all joking. They had like a group chat throughout the week, and they were just like secretly like making memes out of all of us and stuff the entire week. It was just like, they're as cool as, like, I don't even know where they find those counselors, because it was just the coolest group. So like I said, I got city councilor, and we go to the state conferences, and we're in this big lecture hall, and we're separated. Nationalists are in one lecture hall, Federalists, and it fills up the entire lecture hall. So that gives you an idea of how many people were there. And I remember I was sitting doodling in my book, and I was playing hangman with the kids sitting next to me who I made friends with. Zane, and we were playing hangman, Zane and Charlie, and he was running for governor. And what we tried to do as a city, because we were being really what word? We were being politically active, and by that I mean we were cheating a lot. We were trying to be as like evil and grimy politically as we could. So we tried to stack the ballot and made sure that there was someone from Monroe for every single position in the ballot. So for across statewide, and then we did worse stuff than that. But it was all okay in the lines of Boys State. They were cool with it, but we did some political grimy stuff. It was politics. So, making shifty deals. And some of the other cities were kind of just like knock off. The thing at the end of the week is that there's an award called, what is it called? It's basically just a best city award, and it's really prestigious if you get it. It means your city did the best. And the entire week, I would say it was between us and 2 other cities out of the 8 cities that were there. So it was like, if you're going for that. So you can imagine a couple of us are trying, and everyone was making shifty deals. You vote for our guy, we'll get your guy elected. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, and I kid you not, 2 minutes, they brought it up at lunch, but I didn't really pay attention. 2 minutes before, my friends were like, dude, you have to go for lieutenant governor. And I was like, what? That's the second biggest position in the entire state. Like, God, go for it. And I'm like, there's all these guys in suits, and they prepared speeches, like huge, like page-long speeches and stuff. And like, all they give you is that you have a couple questions that you're supposed to answer, and they're like, I remember for governor, it was like, how would you deal with transgender bathrooms and stuff. For lieutenant governor, it was more stuff like, the governor was more controversial issues, because that's what the governor deals with in real life. But lieutenant governor was more like, how are you going to do this and that? So that's all I had to go off. So 2 minutes before, they're like, yeah, dude, do it. So then they were like, raise your hand if you're going to come up and speak. And I was like, ugh. And it's all really serious. Like, we had a head of our party, and he had to be like, we elect so many votes. So I went up there, and I'm sitting, I think I'm like the third person, and there's like, I think 6 guys total going for lieutenant governor. And I was like the third person in line, and I listened to these. I wasn't even listening to the speeches or whatever. And actually, no. One of the guys went up before me, and then he opened up time for questions, and I grilled him during the question time, because he had so many fallacies, like logical fallacies in his speech, and I was like, so you said it, and he was just like, and then the guy banged his gavel. He was like, all right, time's up for that, and I was like, good. So he didn't get to answer. So, anyways, I go up there, and I look around, and he's like, all right, time will start whenever you speak, and I just go up to the mic, and I look around, I'm like, my dudes, and everyone in the crowd loved it. Everyone that's all I said, and everyone thought it was just so funny, because it was really high tense the entire week. And I was like,
so you're just like that guy.
I'm gonna try and take this cool, my dudes. And then I went on and did my speech, and everyone went crazy at the end. Everyone was clapping and wild. I was like, I had no time to prepare at all, and I don't know. I didn't stutter or anything. I just said whatever. I actually ran out of time, and I had nothing written down. I just answered the questions, and then I stopped talking about them. I was done with those in like 30 seconds, and then just talked for like, I don't even know, a couple minutes. And everyone thought it was awesome. Everyone was clapping and everything. And I went and sat down, and the other guys came up, and then they vote, and as I was walking up to my seat, because everyone had to vote, right? I was walking up to my seat, and like people were already starting to like shake my hand. They're like, "Wow, that's so great! You're such a great natural speaker." It's like, you know what? You got my vote, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, I was drawing a combination of a zebra and a tiger in my notebook a second ago, and now you guys are like shaking my hands for being whatever. So I go, and then it's me and one other guy. It's narrowed down to, and he goes up and he does his speech, and then I go up and my dudes, and then I do my speech for like another 30 seconds, and I open it up to questions a little bit, and I won, and I got elected for the Nationalist Party, and then the Federalist Party elected one, and I was just like, what? So it wasn't until the next day that we do the final speeches and get elected, and at the dinner and I think the breakfast and the lunch before all of that, kids were walking up to me, shaking my hand, like everywhere I went. I think every kid. There was this one kid I remember not from our city who shook my hand at least like 7 different times. And I was like, you only have to do it once, man. And they were just being like, and everyone had this different stuff to say. And I would have understood if they were like, hey, you got my vote, but will you do this once you're elected? No, nobody did that. Everyone was just like, you got my vote, Tug. He's like, yeah, Tug. Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? I don't think I did anything that cool. And I don't even think it was the my dudes thing. It was just, they just liked the way I spoke. Maybe it was the voice.
Probably, yeah.
They were like, you
sound very official.
He's like, you're such a natural speaker, whatever. I don't know. So it comes to the final election, and this is the grand stage, right? This is all of the American Legion was there. Everyone's in one room. It's a different room. It's really like, and it was really high tense or high pressure, and like the actual like guy who runs Boise State was up on stage, and basically that night we had all of our party, all the people who were elected, and our party leader were like organizing it. They were like, what are you going to say? Who's going to get this much time to speak, whatever, because, and everyone's like, all right, whatever you do, don't abandon your party. We're just going to talk about how good our party is, not about ourselves. But the other party apparently had another idea. They just gave themselves speeches. So they went first, and they just did all their stuff, and they were like, done. Cool. All their people went up. They did a couple like judges and stuff, and then their governor gave their speech. So we go up, right? And we get through most of our guys. And then one of our guys goes up, and this is where it gets real bad. It was already a mess. Our speeches were already a mess. And our guy goes up, and he says, I don't have anything to say. Just vote your conscience. And then he holds up a poster for the other party's governor, and the entire crowd goes wild. And we're just, and all that's left to speak is a guy, our Secretary of State, myself, and the governor. And me and the Secretary of State just turn around to our governor, and we're like, oh, that's not good. So this guy just was like, went full traitor, and he goes down, and we're just like, okay. So our Secretary of State goes up and he talks a little bit, and I'm like, oh no. So our entire party looks like a fool. At this point, we're just like, all right, we're done. So I go up there and I do it again. I'm like, my dudes. And then I do the speech or whatever. Once again, no preparation. I wrote like something down the night before, but I didn't have it like in front of me when I spoke. I just said whatever, and I was like, whatever. I'm not going to talk like I'm an amazing speaker. I just completely did just
wing it,
bullcrapped it, winged it, yeah, and it worked, and everyone loved it. And I go down, and our governor goes, and I'm shaking hands all the way down our line, and I'm standing at the end of the line, and now it's our governor's turn to speak. So everyone's like, oh god, just I feel so bad for him. He just got completely destroyed, and he just goes up there and he's like, all right guys, that was pretty ballsy. And then he walked down. And we still had like time left to talk. We still had time left. So our party leader, he's not running for anything. He's the guy who like leads all of it. He's just the organizer. So he's sitting there and he's like on his phone, and then he hears the guy like walk off stage, and he goes, what? And then, so he's like, so I could see him like kind of fumbling, and I was still talking to guys. I wasn't even paying attention upstage on the stage, and he walks up to the mic and he's like, now we'll hear from Lieutenant Governor Tuck. And I'm like, I just got full whiplash. I'm like, what? I already did my piece. You can't throw me back into the fire. So I was like, okay. So I walked back up on stage. I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know this was going to happen, because our governor just completely was like, all right, I'm screwed. So he just walked off. So now I have
gave up.
Yeah, so I have 2 minutes on stage just in front of everyone. The guy who runs Boise State was there, and it's never happened before like this. Everyone's just like, what is going on?
What do we do?
So I just went up there and I did some more. I just talked some more and winged it, and everyone goes wild, and like people were clapping, and I was like I was like pointing at different cities, like, this is what I'm gonna do for you if I get elected. And more handshakes follow after that, and then they're like, all right, you're elected. You know, they chose me over the other guy, and it was just the entire week was just so unexpected because I came in, I was like, I'm not gonna do anything. So it was just, my mind was really rattled, and I was just, it was like emotional whiplash and physical whiplash too, because I would go to bed at like 2 a.m. and have to wake up at like 6.
Ow.
Because my roommate, I love him to death, Colin, he was a judge, and what he did is he would turn the heat in the room. He would leave the lights on, and he would turn the heat in the room up to 90, so that way he could stay up later at night. And the kid was like sweating, and because he had to write appeals, so whenever a case came to him, he had to like write a full-on, and he took it really seriously. The other judges, from what I heard from him, he ranted about him every night, were like really just bums, and they didn't do anything. They were just like, yeah, he's not guilty. Well, he wrote like full 2-page long appeals, right? So the dude would leave the lights on. I'm sorry, Colin, if you ever hear this. I don't blame you.
Well, now we have to send it to him.
He would turn the heat. I will, because I have a group chat with all my Monroeians. So he would turn the heat up to 90, and I would have to fall asleep with 90-degree heat with the lights on every night, and it took to like 2 a.m, and I was just like, and I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have any work to do. I'm lieutenant governor, man. I'm just like, okay. So here's the wild thing: the same day that everyone got elected, the governor got impeached. It's never happened in Boise State history.
Wait, on what terms?
Campaign fraud. So the one rule in bold print underlined in the packet before is you may not bring any pre-printed campaign material, right? So you're not allowed to bring like posters or anything, right? So they're like, all right, just bring markers and stuff and you can make it when you get here. Well, he had business cards with his name and whatever. They didn't say governor on it, and it was a whole argument, and the kid was like, you know, blah blah blah. I just brought them so I could, you know, be friends. He was I have certain opinions on that kid. Anyways, so, but I had to keep my mouth shut, right? Because I'm lieutenant governor. I can't bash my own governor, because if he gets impeached, that means I'm governor. I can't, and there was supposed to be a runoff election if he gets impeached. So I was like, I can't bash him and then try and get elected, and I'm not going to get any votes. So I just was like, people would walk up to me, and I remember I got to a point, sergeant at arms, which is basically just a bodyguard, and there was this cool kid. There was this really big kid in our group, and he was the funniest person I've ever met in my life, because he was so nonchalant. And I was like, "Oh, you're my bodyguard." So I had this big dude followed me around all the time, and my secretary, and he was really cool too, Michael. And Michael followed me around, and he would just mostly like hold my paper. He would hold papers and like do whatever when we were in Senate. And so I had my sergeant of arms following me around, like this bodyguard, and he was a scary dude. Like, and he walked around with like a wife beater and stuff. It was awesome, man. He was so cool. So I remember one time we walked in the room, and this entire city was sitting on these couches, right, and talking, and they all like their heads just turned like the seagulls from Finding Nemo. They're like, "Hi," and they all turn and they see me like, "Lieutenant Governor Tug, what do you think about the impeachment?" And I just walked up and I was like, no comment. And they were like, "You can't." And I was just like, my bodyguard was like, "You guys can't." So I had to like shuffle away from that, and that happened like all the time. The impeachment trial ended up taking like 3 days, because there was rumors of impeachment, then it has to go through the House and then through the Senate, and then there actually has to be the trial. So
out of a week, half of it was spent electing and then impeaching one guy.
So, but it's never happened in Boise State. They're like, people, we didn't find this out till the end of the week. Everyone always asked the counselors, like, "Sorry, we can't tell you that."
Yeah.
Well, it turns out it's never actually gotten as far as the physical impeachment. Like, it's never made it to the trial and gotten through the trial. So me and my Senate, we were trying to be really cool. We're like, all right, we're going to get down actual issues. We're not going to worry about this, because I would say the Senate were the smartest individuals in the place. Not myself. Not myself. I was leading it. So I was just the guy with the gavel, like, "Hey, shut up, do more Senate stuff," in layman's terms. But I swear, they were all really bipartisan, or not bipartisan. They were really like, they were just about solving issues and being senators. They didn't care about their city, whatever. So they were really good people to have as senators. So we were like, all right, we're just going to get our work done. We're not going to worry about the impeachment trial. Well, eventually it got passed through the House. The House was apparently a mess all week. Like, they had fidget spinners. Apparently there's a school store. Did you just blow out your mic?
Yeah.
So there was a school store, and they all went and bought fidget spinners. So apparently the entire week, this 30 some of kids, House is a lot larger than the Senate, were just sitting there with fidget spinners. That's what the House did. So they're interesting. They also passed a bill that made it a law that you have to crack open a cold one with the boys on Saturdays, and while doing so, you must respect women. That was a thing that happened. Of course, when it got to the Congress, I just grabbed it and I read it out loud. I was like, all right, guys, so we're going to pass this, right? So that did pass. So by the end of the week, that was an official law. Awesome. And so here's the thing that happened. So it goes to trial. Okay. He gets impeached. I'm now the lieutenant governor. They're like, all right, we don't have enough time to do the runoff election. So you're acting governor and lieutenant governor. So I'm like, I was just like, my mind was rattled. I had an emergency meeting with the cabinet. So all my guys who were basically just they were basically just the last governor's guys. And they were all just like his friends, his buddies, whatever, except for a couple who were from my city who I made sure got elected. So I was like, all right, guys, hi, I'm the governor now. Let's get some stuff done. So it was really funny because on 90% of the bills, it was signed by Lieutenant Governor Rivertuck and also signed by Governor Rivertuck. I don't know. I just thought that was a cool little dirty thing.
Twice.
Yeah, I got the. So I was basically a dictator by the end of the week. Like everyone's like, you're a dictator and we don't care. If we wanted to have a dictator, we'd want it to be you. I was like, all right, that makes me feel evil and good at the same time. So and the week goes by and then him and his group like file for a mistrial, and with 5 minutes left in the last government function, the opinion got reversed. So he got replaced as governor for the last 5 minutes. Just a little fun story of it. But so that was the first time it ever happened, and I had to run all of that. So the entire week was just insane and wild, and just the stuff I never would have even expected to happen. And I just felt like it was like a lot of brotherhood and camaraderie. Everyone was really cool. I felt like by the end of the week that I knew every person there, and everyone was just really awesome. So if you are listening to this and you're interested in Boise State, you can find me. You know, we the R.A.M show has a Twitter now. I made one, but I haven't really fully gotten into it yet. There's, Facebook and whatever. You can ask Miss Hyde. You can ask Optimist Club. And you could just Google search it. It's not that hard, guys. So if you're interested in that, that's my plug. I said little plug, but it was actually about 50 minutes of a plug. So that's what I did with my summer, and it was really awesome. And I'm really close with all the guys now. We're trying to find time to meet up. I'm about to be up north by the end of July, and I'm like, hopefully, because there were guys from the UP there too. It was only Michigan people, because each state. A little background about Boise State is that it happens in every state every year, and by the end of it, they elect people for Boise Nation, and you actually get to go to Washington, and you get to go to DC and sit in the Senate.
Like a supervision.
Yeah, and you actually get to meet the president, and like it's insane, right? So I ran for that, and I made it to the final four, and I was 2 boys got elected, and I'm first alternate. So if one of those 2 get hit by a bus, then I go. I wasn't really let down that I didn't go.
Crossing our fingers for getting hit by a bus.
No, I wasn't really let down that I go. I was actually kind of happy with my position because I still got the honor of being elected. Like I still got the honor of being like one of the top 4 individuals at Michigan Boise State. But at the same time, I don't actually have to go there and like do it.
Actually do it.
I kind of wish I would have got to go, but like there's certain it's different than Boise State because you're just a senator. You just run Senate, and I'm like, it would have been a lot higher pressure. So I'm disappointed I didn't go, but I got over it pretty quick. It was a really high honor, and it was really awesome. And I had to go through interviews with the counselors, and that was cool. They were like, wow, man, you answered those questions so well. Because they just grill you. You get put in this it was a really small room. It was like half the size of this with the counselors, and they were just like, their eyes beaming down at me. And I'm like, I want to go to Boise Nation. And they like asked me all these questions and grilled me. And like, but I like took one of their questions. I remember I took one of their questions. I was like, I'm going to take that as, and then and they were like, wow, you answered that awesome. And like one of the guys low key on the side came up and he was like, dude, if you don't get Boise Nation, I'm going to be really disappointed. One of my counselors. And also like one of the nights I was sitting there and our like dorm room was open and everyone was like going to bed, and he's like, hey River, I need to talk to you for a second. He pulled me out in the hallway. He's like, listen, you can't tell anyone I said any of this, but they're printing Boise Nation applications tomorrow. You have to go get one. So like I already felt like a shoo-in or whatever. And then we had to do interviews with the Legion, and all the Legionnaires were there and talk to them. So awesome experience. You have a chance to go to Boise Nation and meet Trump if you want. They're not sure if he's going to be there this year with different stuff going on. So, but yeah, it was just a really insane experience.
I do have to ask like one kind of overarching question that I've been thinking about. Why? Like, so what's the organization that's behind this whole thing? Like, what is their purpose for doing this? Like,
So
are they making, like, is this like a business for them? Are they just
no.
trying to
no,
educate?
so it's a nonprofit. It's run by the American Legion, but also Boys State is their own thing. It's been around for a while. It's been around since, geez, I actually don't know what year, but to give you an idea, that's where JFK and Bill Clinton first met. Bill Clinton was in Boys State. JFK, I don't think he was, but he met I think Bill Clinton like was probably in Nation or whatever, and then met him that way. So there's been a lot of presidents and really important people that have gone through this and then end up being important people, because it does teach you a lot about politics. I'm like, wow, man, I wish I would have got good grades in high school. Maybe I could be the next president or something. So it's like, and yeah, it's really high tense. I actually, I would say their goal of it is to educate people on politics and to hopefully take that sum of kids that get there and make them more involved, because even if you're not you don't have to be present to be involved in politics. You could even just write an email or a letter to your county representative or to your mayor or whatever and all that, or go to town meetings and stuff. Even just doing that, it's a lot more effect on the entire country than you think. And I think that's what they wanted to educate us on. It's just a really fun week, and all of the counselors are really awesome, and I could tell that the entire Boys State program, all the counselors, it was like a huge part of their life, and they really took it to it.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, it was just really big part of their life, and I could tell they, and they've been there doing it for, I think some of the guys said they've been doing it for a decade. Like they've been doing it. They've come back every year as the counselors, and they're the senior staff. And like I said, there was one guy who only did it like it was his first year and stuff. But I didn't know the way he was as a counselor. It seemed like he'd been doing it forever. Like he was really well poised for taking care of all of us, and we were wild. I had to declare martial law by the end of the week because one of the cities decided they wanted to secede from the state.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I remember the situation. Their city was located down in the basement of the building. So I got me, my bodyguard, our city's police chief, the cabinet police chief, and then my secretary from the cabinet of governor, and we all marched down there. And the police chief came up to me and he was like, "Hey, so Harrison wants to secede." I don't remember what city it was. He's like, "So they want to secede," and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, you could just declare martial law." And he hands me the paper. He's already typed it up, and the guy and the counselor in the corner is just sitting on his laptop, and he's like, "Yeah, you can do that." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool." And I'm like, okay, it seems like a really big thing to do. So we marched down there, and I walked into the room, and he's like, "So as soon as you see the paper saying they want to secede, they'll be, it's treason. They'll all be, traitors or whatever." So it was just such a weird experience. So all the guys were like fast walking, because here's the thing is that there were actual like physical contact throughout the week. Like you're allowed to arrest a person and like put them in your room. I remember there was one kid who got arrested for
Whoa.
So there was this one kid who got chased down the hall and got arrested and put in locked in a dorm or a bathroom for a while. Like I said, the counselors are really cool.
Because they've done psychological experiments on what happens when you start dehumanizing people and arresting them. I'm sure people have heard about this before. It was what Milgram or something. Once you put some people as policemen and some people as prisoners and you start arresting them, that does things to your brain, man.
They were
you
teaching
can't
us about politics. It was an interesting week. I don't know how much in line with Boys State it was. I mean, eventually the counselor was like, "Hey, you probably shouldn't do that. You're not allowed to tackle someone." I said that, but it did happen. It happened, but it's the counselors don't see everything. There was some weird stuff. There was an incident one night where our counselor was like, "Hey guys, I know this wasn't you, but I do have to say it. There's been an incident where everyone took the furniture and put it upside down in a bathroom. If you guys could not be involved in that, that'd be great." So apparently one of the cities took all the furniture out of the lobby and then just stacked it upside down in the bathroom. No, they didn't put it upside down. They put it in the bathroom and they hung out in there. Like I said, there was only 3 cities in the running for the Great State or the Great City Award or whatever. So Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like politics at its finest. You know.
So there was some interesting stuff going on, but there was the kids that I was around. That's why it was weird to me, because the kids I were around were really focused on Boise State and actually doing that. But apparently, a couple of the other cities were, the entire city was just like, yep. So we marched down there, and the other guys were like speed walking. And I was like, guys, whatever you do when we get in there, don't touch anyone. Don't physically attack someone. We're not getting out of competition for best city or whatever by the end of the week. So we marched down there, and I go into this dorm room, and the entire city was like, there were kids running around just playing weird. There was music bumping and stuff, and you could tell their city was really out of whack. This entire hallway of dorms was just like, everyone was just like having a party. Like they're like, yeah, it's the end of the week, we get to go home. So I walk in there, I was like, can I see the paper? And someone like put it in front of me, and I was like, so all I did is I just turned around and I looked at and there was this kid who was like 6'7", huge, and I was like, and he was the police chief. I was like, do what you got to do. And I just stepped aside. He was like this country boy, and he like grabbed his belt, and he's like, you're all under arrest. And like, it was so funny. The look in his eyes, I could tell this kid has been dreaming about this moment since he was a child. Like I don't even know how he got.
He's always wanted to arrest a whole bunch of politicians.
He was just this country kid, and I don't even know how he got the position. I didn't elect him, but he was awesome. No, I loved him. And he's like, you're all under arrest. And the kids darted out of the room. They like pushed past him, and they just darted down the hallway, and he started running after them. I was like, no, you got to get back here. You can't. And then all the counselors were already waiting outside. And they're like, you can't, don't touch him, whatever. So then he darted after them and came back. The other kids ran away. They ran upstairs and they like disappeared or whatever. Like I said, it was wild. So I was like, all right. So I took out the paper from my back pocket and just right on the wall, I signed it. And I was like, and it's like, and everyone's like, oh, did you just declare martial law? And I just kind of walked down the hallway, and the counselors, even the counselors are like, whoa, that was really bad. You know the word. Yeah. So they're like, wow, that was really good. And I just walked away. And all of my guys was like, don't touch anyone. That's really bad.
Yeah.
So me and my like posse of just like the biggest kids at Boise State just walked away. It was, yeah. So that was the thing. We declared martial law and seized all their resources, and anything they wanted to do had to be signed off by me. But it was the end of the week, so it didn't matter. Yeah. So that was the thing that happened. Speechless.
Yeah. All right.
After hearing me talk about for an hour about how like professional it was, and then people are tackling
each other and putting furniture in the bathroom, and I mean, that's always what I figured Congress was like. There's just guys hanging out.
We did pass
with like couches in the bathroom.
Okay, we did pass like important stuff though. We did get stuff done, and
it really sounds like cracking open a cold one with the boys every Saturday.
Okay,
like because you said that carries over.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I know we were like, please tell us that carries over. Well, it turns out that the counselors sit down, and it's a really long process, and they pick out what carries over, and they have like full binders, and they take it really seriously. So they didn't carry over the fun stuff, and they're like,
so the meme stuff doesn't like people aren't gonna show up next year and be like, what are these laws?
There were so many, the my dudes meme and the crack over the cool, and like I said, it's not just about politics. It is really relaxed because it's high stress. If there wasn't any time to relax, I would probably have had a mental breakdown. Like the end of the week, they have the Boise State Olympics, and like so we went out and we had the whole entire field to ourselves at Grand Valley, and we did like tug of war and so. Nothing to do with politics, but at this point, politics was over. So, like, they had... Oh, man, I can't even explain it. Boise State is so awesome. Please, please, please listen to me out there. It is the greatest experience I've ever had in my life. It is a week that changes your life and the best week of my life thus far. And I swear on that. It was just...
Not a sponsor.
It's just such a... No, not actually. It's just such a... I don't even know how to explain it. You don't expect it. It's such a great mix. They've nailed it at this point. They've done this for so many years that they just have the right mix of politics and having fun and being relaxed and kicking it back. And I like all the guys in my city I'm so close to, and I have them in the group chat, and those are like going to be my friends for the rest of my life. It's just I'm gushing right now, but it's just so awesome.
Does it tempt you at all, even in the slightest, to actually pursue anything in the strain of politics? Because, like, I mean, I'm just thinking in my head, you're talking about all these people, like, and you're such buddies with them, but I feel like you actually try to go to mayor, and then it's much more cutthroat, and everyone's...
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very high pressure. It's interesting because It's more it's kind of like a personal thing where like now after doing that I feel like wow, politics is something that I obviously love. I obviously was a lot more of a shoo-in for it than I thought I was, and I learned more about it. And politics for me growing up was always so scary. I was always like, oh wow, that's nasty. I was always that kid. It was like, I don't want to do anything with politics. I'm not going to vote. I'm just not even going to pretend it's a thing, whatever. My family's very divided. My brother is the farthest right you can get. He has a Confederate flag hanging up in the window of his room. Yeah, I know. Don't profile me because of that. And then a couple of my other brothers are pretty far right. I was a little bit left for a while. Now I consider myself as dead center as you can be, like not even libertarian. And my mom and dad are they never really made politics part of our life, so I'm thankful for that. They didn't try to try and force us one way, but I would say they're probably farther right. One of my brothers is a little bit left, so it's pretty divided. We're not all like one thing. None of my brothers really like Trump except for the oldest. All of us everyone in my family is like, yeah, no. But yeah, well, that's another thing with Boy State is that they leave current politics out of it. It's not like, oh, I love Trump, I hate Trump, I love Trump. That's not
what it's about.
Yeah, no. At the end of the week, they do a thing called the political spectrum. It's a little thing they do every year, and basically, we all stood in a line with a flagpole, and then they asked us a series of questions, like if you side, and then they would ask us a question, then they would say, this is how the right feels about this, and this is how the left feels about it. This is where they actually represented Republican and Democrat.
Oh, okay.
So this is how they feel about it, and then you take a step to the right, or take a step to the left. So for me, and then it was like, and so there was, and by the end of it, I was standing dead in the center. I was the only kid in the center, because I would take a step to right for one thing, take a step to left for one thing. There was one that I didn't have an opinion on. I think it was abortion. We're not going to talk about that on air, obviously, but I didn't have an opinion on it, so I was like, can I just not move for this one? Like, yeah, that's fine. So I moved right for a couple, left and right, and I just ended up dead center. And I was like, that widened my eyes so much. I was like, wow. And then the other really important thing of it was that you looked around at everybody, and they're like, is this what you expected your friends to be? And I was like, no. There was a couple kids I was like, all right, definitely. Yeah. There was a couple kids who were very open about what they talked
right
about.
Or left every single time.
There was one kid who ran out of room to the right, and another kid who ran out of room to the left. So, and it was interesting. And then he's like, here's why we do this. You guys have become amazing friends all week. Yeah. Look around you.
Look how divided you are.
And this is where it became really heartfelt. They're like, right now the problem with politics is that everyone is trying to bash the other side. A lot of the debates weren't really debates. They were just, here's what they do wrong. And there's such a hate between Democrats and Republicans, and it's like, there's all these protests and stuff, and everyone looks differently. Like, if you see someone who's a Republican, you're going to immediately think one thing about them. Right. And if you see someone who's left, you're going to think one thing about them. And that's where it became really heartfelt, where they're like, these are your friends. These are people that you love and respect, and these are really cool guys, and you know that. So why does it matter? And it was really eye-opening. Like, don't judge people because of politics or because what they believe in. Everyone has the right to an informed opinion, Mr. Crimebring. So everyone has a right to that. And, and it was just so interesting seeing there was kids all the way on the farthest right, and I was friends with all of them, all the way from farthest right, all the way to the farthest left. And I've never considered myself right on any issues, let alone I found out I was on 50% of them, and on 50% of them I was left. So it was just, it was really eye-opening. Like, and it was also interesting because the kid who was on the farthest left and the kid who were on the farthest right were awesome friends. Right. And it was like, it was really eye-opening. Don't judge people. It was a life lesson. Don't judge people because of that. Be involved in politics, not involved in bashing the other side. That doesn't help. I know memes are fun on the internet, but besides that, there's no reason to go like, oh, the right's a bunch of gun-toting, idiots, and the left's is a bunch of whatever.
Right.
The left's a bunch of wimps and
like hippies or something.
They're a bunch of social justice warriors. Don't do that. That same rhetoric is the stuff that causes, we can't get anything done in Senate and the House right now because everyone's just so busy bashing each other. Like, if you just respect someone else's views, you're going to get a lot more done. And that's the other thing, is that the entire time we were in, city council, we never talked about left and right. We just focused on fixing our stuff. And by the end of the week, we ended up with a surplus, actually. a surplus of money by the end of the week. We
Wow.
fixed all of our problems. No more stabbings.
Congratulations.
We built a football stadium. It was just, yeah. So we ended up doing really good with our city, and that was cool. And it was just like, yeah, life lesson.
Yeah, I wonder what would have happened like if you felt more divided on that, because like I do see the problem, because everyone's like, yeah, I mean, let's just like get rid of the parties or something, but it kind of comes back to the same like conversation that I always end up having with high schoolers about like standardized testing. Because everyone's like, I hate standardized tests because it just like puts us into these groups. It doesn't really evaluate me as a person. And I think it comes to the same thing with politics, is like, yeah, like you said, you were like left and right all the time. I think best case scenario, you're able to look at every single situation that has anything political about it and, yeah, make an informed opinion and, say this or that. And you can make arguments for both sides whenever you personally feel that they're justified. But I don't think it's one of those things that we can ever actually just say, let's not have parties, let's just vote however.
Yeah.
Because we only had 2 people that we could have voted for president that were probably going to win. I mean, there were other smaller parties, but there was just no chance
that
for
was the other thing that we learned by the end of the week was the party system. And I have my own views, and I won't get into my own views on this, but I'm just going to tell, what happened at Boise State, and you can make your own opinions on that. So we had, at the end of the week, another thing we did with our last day. They actually had a representative from each party, including the Libertarians, because they got 3% in the last. This was the first time there was ever a Libertarian at. So they had them come up and talk to us. So there was Michigan Republican. I think he was I don't remember what his position was, but he worked on the Trump campaign. The other guy was a senator for a while. The Democrat was senator for a while, and the Libertarian, he was just a Libertarian. I don't remember what his position was. He had a position in his city or whatever, but it was interesting because, and they had like 2 or 3 of each. So by the end, they all answered questions, and of course there were kids. This was the end of the week, so we were just like, everyone was having fun. There were kids who were grilling them and asking them about Trump and stuff, and it was just. But it was interesting. We got to see, all their opinions and stuff. And I will say this, is that when they were up there talking to us, it felt, everyone's eyes were really wide open by the end of the week. They were kind of doing the same stuff that you see in, the Trump and Hillary debates. They were just grilling each other. Rather than coming up and educating all these kids on their Democratic or Republican views, they were mostly just like, hey, I did this, I've had this much experience, this guy hasn't, this is what this side thinks. I don't, and, it's a rough spot in politics right now, and I'm trying to leave my views out of it as much as I can, but I would just say, don't try and bash the other side, because that doesn't do anything.
Well, to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because my mom knows and hate that I will always argue for the other side no matter what, even if it's not something I actually think.
Same.
I just love arguing the other position.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, in a case where, we're talking about, politics, I don't actually want to use like a Trump and Hillary thing, because that's still like so charged.
Yeah.
But you've got guy A and guy B.
I'm trying to stay out of it.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, so assume we're both politicians. Yeah. So if I say everything that's good about myself, like, oh, wow, look how good I am at radio stuff, I got good scores in my tests. Like, I can say all the things that are good about me, but I could have so many skeletons in my closet. I could just tax everyone just so I could eat more grapes, be like super evil king kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that stuff. So if you're not going to say it, then no one's going to know.
So this is fair. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to I'm going to try and cap this debate right now, because it'll be another R.A.M show. That's fine. I'm glad we can talk about politics here and not get aggressive with it with like so many other people have. But I think that's true. That's why checks and balances is a thing. That's why we have all of our branches, because someone has to say this person's doing wrong.
Right.
And I think it is important that we check other people and what they're doing, but that should be something that's left up to the government and not to the people running. I feel like that should be something that should happen in the early stages of elections and, stuff like that. And then when you get elected, it's fine if you talk about that stuff, but it shouldn't be all of it. Like, there were points in the debates where someone, and it happened to both of them, so this isn't charged for other side. Hillary and Trump both did the same thing, where they would start answering a question and then they would be talking about something, And then they would just go off and be like, oh, Hillary had emails. Oh, Trump wants to build a wall. And then
Yeah.
the guy who was running the debate, the poor guy, you saw the look on his face.
Yeah. Oh,
The
gosh,
guy
those
from,
people.
he's from like, what is he from? No, he's from like,
Look, they did a couple. I mean.
yeah. Well, but the one guy with the really white hair, I just remember he's like, I asked you about how you plan on doing this tax, and he's
Right.
like, but the emails, and then Hillary's
Yeah,
like, but the wall, and everyone sitting at home was like, what? So at that point, it gets kind of taboo and ridiculous. Like, I don't want to hear about how much you hate them, and you don't have to repeat it. Okay, she has the emails, he has a wall. Cool.
Like-
they're both terrible, but just. It's just such a mess.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, you definitely have to put checks on people, and you have to bring that stuff up, but do it in a way that the rhetoric isn't aggressive and attacking
Yeah,
someone.
when
Do
you're
it in
not
a way
being
that like, here's how I feel on this issue. They feel about it this way. This is why you should elect me. If you agree with me, then bring it up like that, not like emails.
But again, you it's very possible that if you take this goody two shoes way, that you just won't get elected. Because what if I actually tell you, here are all of my political beliefs on every single subject? If you find out that I am, say, pro more taxes and you're not, then you're like, oh, I didn't even realize that guy stands on this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for him now.
So here's
But if
the
I
thing.
just make myself look like a good person, then you're like, I'll vote for a good person.
So you need to have a stance on everything. I think that's one of the things that when you're running for president, and you need to have a stance on everything. And when you go into debates and you spend so much time bashing the other side, you're not really showing what your stances are. You're really just bashing them. And it's one thing, but I think that comes back to Boise State and how they opened up our eyes, and that's small group of guys. And there's also a girls' state. So if you're interested in that, also get in contact with anyone or just look it up. That's also a thing. So girls, don't feel left out of this. It's and I think there's a little bit differently, but I'm sure it's still awesome. If it's even anything the same, it has to be awesome. So the thing with Boise State that opened our eyes is So it opened up our eyes that we need to be informed on stuff. So when it comes to these debates and when it comes to being a voter, you should do your research. Like if you're not feeling you're getting enough information about someone on air, on TV, on media, which is regulated by a corporation, look it up, man. Use Google. Like you got to have an informed opinion. Obviously everyone should vote. That's a really important thing, but you should at least make an attempt to be involved in politics in some way.
I think being involved in politics, that's more like, that's totally respectable to me. Like, because there's like the big thing that's coming back and, it's all over Reddit and stuff, is the net neutrality issue. Like that's something that you can like write letters to the FCC and your governors being like, support net neutrality, that kind of thing. But I feel like when it comes to just the presidential vote, I mean, there's a lot of people who are voting. And like, say you spend, 40 hours of your life just diving into politics. You do real unbiased research on both parties and you take every issue and you're like, at the end, you're like, yes, I know who I'm voting for. And you vote for person A and you sign it and everything and you put it in the box and you're like, wow, I feel great. And then you see the other guy who just watched some things on TV and he was like, man, I heard terrible things about person A.
Yep.
I'm going to vote for person B. And they don't even think about it. They spent, 20 minutes thinking about it.
Well, that's
and they
what
drop it in the
politics-
box and
that's
they've
what-
nullified your vote.
Yeah. Well, just to wrap this up here, my 2 cents on that. I know it's hard to wrap this up. My 2 cents on that is just, media has become a big part of things. That's all I got to say. And it's just, it's going to happen. And I don't really have an opinion on how you're going to fix that. It's just,
You just have to, like, how much time are you going to put into it? Like I say, if you really care
don't
much.
don't worry about what other people do. Just if you want to, you can get involved in politics and you can share your view and hopefully change a couple people's minds. But when it comes down to it, one clip on Instagram of someone, a candidate saying something stupid can there you go. So we're going to wrap up the R.A.M show. That was a lot of politics today.
Yeah, that was more
sorry about
politics
it.
than I
Well,
expected, but
actually,
it's fine.
about an hour of it was talking about Boise State. A little bit of it was politics. R.A.M, it's a R.A.M show.
Yeah.
We ramble. And if we ramble onto politics, and then it's fine.
I mean, it's important to talk about. And I think that we as teenagers, of course, we do definitely have an interesting position on things.
Because we don't get to vote, but we definitely have opinions.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Because, oh gosh, the day after the election, because I'm not going to say anything about either side. Even if people ask me, like, what do you think about the current president? All I say is I didn't like either of them. And I don't say anything more because I don't want to get into a conversation about it. But, oh, gosh, a high school after the day Trump got elected was, wow, that was borderline violent.
And it's just
why?
That's what WAHS is here for. That's what 89.5 is. That all of our listeners, old, young, they get a view into our minds. Yeah. They get the teenage angst. They also get our view on politics. They get all of that, and we hopefully can stay as neutral as we can because you guys are also here for some good music. And maybe you didn't want to listen to politics. Maybe you just got done with a politic conversation with your child, and now you have to come in here and listen to others talk about it. Oh, I feel bad now.
Or maybe we've made some claims now, and people are gonna come home after being in the car and be like, "Oh, did you hear what he said? That's the worst."
If you want to argue with me about politics, river.tuck@gmail.com. Hit me up. So that's it. That's the first R.A.M show during the summer. I'm glad we're back. Probably one of the longest ones. This will be up on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
and we
black
got
and white.
We got webcams.
Unlike politics,
it's
not black and white as much as you think it is. It's not.
Oh jeez. All right, so let's wrap it up. We're gonna play Black Hole Sun. Yeah, that's a really.
It's also impossible.
It's also the guitarist passed away. We did a little we did a homage to him when he passed away the day that he did on radio. Okay. Yeah, we came on. So Black Hole Sun.
All right.
Peace out. Have a good summer.
We'll see you next time.
Enjoy yourselves. Take it easy.
You're listening to 89.5 WAHS, Auburn Hills. I am Mitchell Payne.
I'm River Tuck.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah, we will.